Okay, so in the last class we have seen how to perform filtering using the date dimensions and the measures using the filter sheet, and also you have seen the quick filters. So I'm having one type of requirement where my requirement contains two dimensions. Okay, so I'm having one task like this. I would like to show the top 10 products. I would like to show the top 10 products in furniture department. In furniture department, I would like to show the top 10 products. So here we are having two filters. One is the department equal to furniture filter, and top 10 products. Okay, here we have two fields. One is the department field and the other is the products field. So how to get the top 10 products in this furniture department? So let me open Tableau. So I'm connecting to the superstore. So in the in only the furniture department we want to get the top 10 products. So that's why I'm taking the department field. I'm taking the department. I'm dragging the department and I'm dropping into filters. I'm selecting furniture. So just click on apply and click on OK. So once drag the items and drop into the rows. So the product is nothing but an item. So in the furniture departments here, in the status here, Tableau is showing us the number of rows, 257 rows. It means total we are having 257 items in the furniture. If I remove the furniture, then total we are having 1263 items. Okay, total here we are having 1263 items. And after applying the furniture filter, here we got 257 items. So on the on this 257 items, I would like to get the top 10 items based on sales. So how to get the top 10 items based on sales? So again we have to drag the item. So we have to drag it into filters. After dropping into filter, just click on the top tab. If you click on the top tab here, we're having an option called as by field. Just walk through the by field, click on top 10 based on sales sum. So now on the furniture data here, I'm applying the top 10 based on sales sum. Click on apply and click on OK. Now here Tableau is showing us only the three items. Here the Tableau is showing us only the three items. So this first field contains the furniture department data. So total we are having 257 records. So on the 257 records, here I have applied the top 10 items. After applying the top 10 items, here we got only the 3 items. Why here Tableau is giving us only 3 items? Here we are supposed to get the 10 items, right? So here we have to understand how two filters will behave in Tableau. Okay, here where we need to understand the default filtering mechanism in Tableau, or how two filters will behave in Tableau. In Tableau, by default, two filters will act independently. In Tableau, we have two filters on the filter shelf. Those two filters will act independently. It means there is no dependency between one filter and the other filter. So it means the two filters, they are going to query the data source directly. Here the department going to query the data source directly, and it is going to get the furniture data, and the item also going to query the data source. It is going to get the top 10 items, okay, across all the departments. Here we are having two filters, right? So here how these two filters will behave means, this department filter is going to query the data source directly, and it is going to get the 257 records. And this item also queries the data source. And it is going to get the 10 items, okay, top 10 items among all the departments, okay, not only in the furniture department, because there is no dependency between one filter and the other filter. Okay, the one filter, it won't depends on the output of the other filter. So And how it is going to give you, how it is going to use as the final output means the intersection of these three records. The intersection of this, okay, the intersection of the output of these two filters. So here we're having 257, here we're having the top 10. So out of these records, it is giving us the three common records or the three matching records. Okay, three common records or the three matching records. That's why here we want the three records. So let me show you once the top 10 items. I'm creating here, I'm removing the item. Here we got 257 items. I'm creating one more sheet. I'm dragging the item and I'm dropping into rows. I'm going to top. I'm showing top 10 based on sales.
Well, your screen is not refreshing.
Oh, is my voice and video is not? Oh, you can't even.
No.
I see your actions are very slow after you talk.
Oh, really? Just a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have changed my connectivity. So let me know guys if you have any issues. So now I am taking the item and I'm dropping into filters. I'm selecting the top. I'm selecting the top 10 based on sales sum. Let me click on apply and click on OK. Let me drag the item and drop it into rows. Let me cover with the department. So now this item is querying the superstore and it has given us the top 10 items. So out of the top 10 items, the 3 items they belongs to furniture. The 3 items they belongs to furniture and the remaining 7 they belongs to the technology. And if you go to the sheet 1 here, we are having the furniture department data. Okay, here we are having 257 records. So if you take these two filters into one single sheet, how Tableau going to use as the final output means the intersection of these two outputs. So here 257, here 3 records. So finally it is going to give us the 3 records. So let me explain in detail about the internal filtering behavior. Okay, just a moment. Okay, once all of this here guys, here I'm having some data. Okay, some two departments data which contains total 6 rows. So out of this data, I would like to get the top 2 products in D1 department. On this data, I would like to get the top 2 products in the D1 department. So here again we are having two filters. One is the department equal to D1 and the other is top 2 products. So first, if I take the department equal to D1, the department equal to D1, it is going to query the data source directly. it is going to query the data source directly. So if we take department equal to D1, it is going to retrieve the D1 department data. So it means we are having 3 records. So it is going to take those 3 records. It is going to take those 3 records into the buffer of the filter 1. Next, it is going to apply the second filter, top 2 products. Okay, top 2 products on a complete data source, not only in the D1 department. Because by default, the 2 filters, they are going to query the data source independently. And if you take the top 2 products, out of the 6 products which are top 2, here out of the 6 products which are top 2, this P2, 150 is the top 1 and P33 145 is the top 2. Now it is going to take the top 2 products. It is going to take the top 2 products into the result buffer of the filter 2. And here, how we will get the fund output means the intersection or the matching records from both the outputs. So here only one record is matching, that is D1, and here D1. Here only the one record is matching. So in the final output is, it is giving us just the D1 department data. The reason is 2 filters will act independently in Tableau by default. 2 filters will act independently. It means one filter, it will not depend on the output of the other filter. So then how to achieve these kind of requirements? So how to achieve these kind of requirement means with the help of the next type of filter known as context filter. With the help of the context filter, we can achieve these kind of requirements. Okay, so what context filter going to do? What context filter going to do in Tableau, or how the context filter will behave in Tableau? So to perform the context filtering, okay, so as by default 2 filters are acting independently, we cannot achieve our required output. So how to achieve our required output means with the help of the most important filtering mechanism known as the context filters. So to implement the context filters, we are having 2 rules. The first rule is identify dependent and independent filters. Identify dependent and independent filters. And the rule 2 is make the independent filter as context. Okay, the 2 rules to implement the context filters are identify the dependent and the independent filters. And the rule 2 is make the independent filter as context. Okay, the 2 rules to perform the context filtering are identify the dependent and the independent filters. And next, after identifying the independent and the dependent filters, make the independent filter as context. So what will happen if we make the independent filter as context? So if we make any filter as context, all the remaining filters, they will depend on the context filter, but not the data source. I will show you practically, guys. So now in this case, we are having the top 2 products in the D1 department. So here, which is the dependent? Here we are having 2 filters. One is the department filter, and the other is the top 2 products. So here, as we want the top 2 products only in the D1 department, it means the top 2 products is acting as the dependent filter, and this D1 department is acting as what? Independent. So the independent is the department. And the dependent is the product, because we want to get only in the D1 department. So the product is depending on the department. So first we have to take the department equal to D1 filter. Okay, so first we have to take the independent filter. So the independent filter is department. We have to take the department equal to D1. So after taking the department equal to D1, it is going to give us the D1 department data. So here in our data, so the D1 department contains 3 rows. It is the D1 department data. It is the context filter output. It is the context filter output, and we have one more filter, that is the top 2 products. So how the context filter going to work means, first we have to identify the independent and the dependent fields. So after identifying the independent and the dependent fields, so first we have to apply the context filter. First we have to apply the context filter. So here as the department being the independent filter, we have to take the context of the department and we have to apply the filter. So once if we apply the filter, this D1 department contains the 3 records. So the context filter output contains the 3 records. And here we have one more filter, that is the top 2 products. So now we have to take a normal filter, that is the top 2 products. Now what this normal filter going to do is, this normal filter, as it is depending on the context filter, this normal filter, it is going to query the context filter output but not the actual data source. Okay, if we takes the normal filter, what the normal filter going to do is, the normal filter, it is going to query the context filter output but not the data source. Now it is going to get the top 2 products on the context filter output. So what the context filter contains? D1 department. So finally it is going to give us the top 2 products from the D1 department. So it is the final output. Okay, so here the bottom line is, if we take the 2 filters and if we apply the context, so the context filter will act as the independent filter. Independent filter means the context filter, it is going to query the data source directly, and the dependent filters they are going to query, and the dependent filters they are going to query the context filter output but not the data source. Okay, the dependent filters, they are going to query the context filter output but not the actual data source. So in this way we can make one filter dependent on the other filter. So how we can make one filter dependent on the other filter means with the help of the context filter. So now let's try to implement this in Tableau. So here we want to show the top 10 products in the furniture department. So how to get the top 10 products in the furniture department means, so first we have to identify the dependent and the independent. So here the top 10 is dependent and the independent is furniture, because only in the furniture you want to get the top 10. So we have to make this department furniture as context. So how to make this department furniture as context means, just simply right click on the department. So how to add it as a context? Just simply right click on the department. If you right click on the department, here we got an option called as add to context. So just click on add to context. If I click on add to context, now this filter is turning into the gray color. Okay, the gray color filters are known as the context filters. The gray color filters are known as the context filters. Now just get the top 10 items. So now the item will act as the normal filter. So what this item going to do is, it is going to query the furniture department data but not the actual data source. So just drag the item, click on top, select by field, click on top 10 based on sales sum. So click on apply and click on OK. So now once drag the sales and drop it into text. So now it has given us the top 10 items. Okay, now it has given us the top 10 items only in the furniture department. Now what is happening? Now the item filter or the item query is querying the context filter output but not the actual data source. Whereas if I remove the context, if I remove that from the context, now it is giving us only 3 items, because if you have the two independent filters, they are going to query the data source directly. So we won't get the expected results. Let me add this to context. Now here we got the top 10 items. Okay. So here one more thing is, always the context filters, they will appear at the top of the filter cell. Okay, let's say for example, if you want to place a normal filter on the top of the context filter means Tableau it won't accept. Here I'm placing the item on the top of the department. Here I'm placing the item on the top of the departments here. It is not moving as the normal filter is depending on the context filter. We cannot place the normal filter above the context filter. Okay, let's try with one more task. Let's try with one more task. In my next task, I would like to show. In my next task, I would like to show the top 10 customers. Top 10 customers in Asian continent. In Asian continent for the year 2013. For the year 2013. So for the year 2013 in the Asian continent, I would like to get the top 10 customers. So here, what are the dependent fields and what are the independent fields? The dependent fields are, okay, here the top n. One shortcut is always the top n, always the top n field will act as the dependent field. So top 10 customers is the dependent field. So here you want to get the top 10 customers in Asian continent for the year 2013. Okay. So the top 10 customers is dependent and the Asian continent and the year 2013 are independent. So let's try to build this. So once drag the continent and drop it into filters, select Asia and click on apply, click on OK. Now again drag the order date, drop it into filters, click on years and click on next and select 2013. Here we are having the Asian continent and the year 2013. So add this Asia to context. So how to add this Asia to context means just simply right click on the Asia and click on add to context and again right click on the year, click on add to context. So here we are having two context filters. Now here you have to get the top 10 customers. So how to get the top 10 customers means just simply drag the customer name and drop it into filters. Click on top, select by field and select top 10 based on sales. We can take any metric. So click on apply and click on apply. Now drag the customer name and drop it into rows. Drag the sales and drop into columns. Here we got the top 10 items. Here you may get one doubt. If you have the multiple context filters, how the multiple context filters will operate? So if you have the multiple context filters, how the multiple context filters will operate means, let's say here I'm having two context filters. One is the department and the other is the year. So the multiple context filters by default they are going to query the data source independently. Okay, the multiple context filters by default they are going to query the data source independently. There is no dependency between one context filter and the other context filter by default. But it is possible to create the dependency between two context filters also. That I will discuss okay in my coming task. But by default, two context filters will work independently. Okay. So what is the advantage of using the context filter? So always the context filter it will improve the performance. Always the context filter it will improve the performance. So how the context filter it is going to improve the performance? So let's say I am having a data source which contains 1 crore records. If you take the two independent filters, the two independent filters they are going to query okay the complete data of the data source. It means filter 1 going to query 1 crore records and filter 2 also going to query 1 crore records. So on a whole it is going to query the 2 crore records. What about the context filter? If you have one normal filter and one context filter, the context filter it is going to query 1 crore records and let's say it has given us 30 lakh records in the context filter output. Now the normal filter it is going to query what? only the 30 lakh records. Now the normal filter, it is going to query only the 30 lakh records, but not the complete 1 crore records. So in this, with the context filter, it is going to improve the performance. And the other advantage is, if you want to perform the dependent filtering, if you want to perform the dependent filtering in Tableau, so dependent filtering means if you want to make one filter dependent on the other filter, then only option available is context filter. And also here one more thing is, as here the normal filters, they're querying the context filter output. As here the normal filters, as they're querying the context filter output. So here Tableau going to store the context filter output. Tableau going to store the context filter output, okay, in one temporary table depending on the data source. Okay, as here the normal filters are querying the context filter output. Tableau going to store this context filter output in some temporary tables. So if the data source is of type, say like Excel or text file or MS Access file, Tableau going to create the temporary table as MS Access file in our local machine. In our local machine, Tableau going to create the MS Access file, and in that MS Access file, Tableau going to store the context filter output. Then, what could be the case if you have the database as a source system? If you have the database as a source, then Tableau going to create the temporary table in the database. Okay, so if you're connecting to any database with the help of one user, that user should have the create table permission. If the user is not having the create table permission on the database, then context filter, it will not work. Okay, then context filter, it will not work, because if you want to create anything on the database, we need permission. Okay, so to avoid these kind of difficulties from Tableau 9, okay, it is a mechanism up to Tableau 8. Okay, up to Tableau 8, depending on the data source, Tableau going to create the temporary table. If it is a database, Tableau going to create the temporary table, okay, in that database. If it is a file, Tableau going to create the temporary table as an MS Access file. So to overcome the database difficulties from Tableau 9, it is creating storing the context filter output in the MS Access file, irrespective of the data source. Okay, irrespective of the data source, Tableau is creating the MS Access file to store the context filter output. So it is the internal mechanism of the context filter space. So let me discuss one more task.
So, Prajwal, so MS Access is mandatory on the machine.
Yes.
Okay.
See, even though if you're not having the MS Access file, it is going to create that extension, but you cannot open that file if you're not having MS Access.
So it's going to create an MDB file, MDB extension.
It is going to create as the .mdb file.
Okay.
But we won't open that file directly, right? Tableau will take care of the connectivity. But the it's good to have the MS Office get installed on the machine where we're working with the Tableau.
No, I just asking if Tableau needs the MS Access to be installed, so it doesn't need it. Internally creates an MDB file.
Yeah, exactly.
Prajwal, when we are giving this file to anyone, or the dashboard we are giving to someone who is a user using it, then if his system is not having MS Access, then what will be the situation?
Actually here, how we will give this particular report to the end user means in the form of the Tableau workbook, okay, in the form of .twx. If the end user is having the Tableau get installed, then everything will be open. Because in our local, here in my local machine, here I am doing the work. But how we will share our work means by saving our work in the form of .twx. Yeah, it means it's the Tableau packaged workbook. So it is going to pack everything. It is going to pack the local data. local data plus the visualizations. The visualizations means the dashboards and the worksheets, even storyboards in the form of .twbx. Even though if the end user is not having the MS Access, the visualization will open because it is going to pack everything into the Tableau, right? So the Tableau will convert it into its own encryption mechanism. So it will automatically open if you open that in some other machine.
So this is not applicable for any quick filters. So this is only for context filters. For quick filters, if our users can.
Not really. Even see this context filter is one type of filter. So on the context filter, we can take the quick filter. Now it is giving us the top 10 customers from the Asian continent. If I select Australia, from both the Asia and Australia, it is giving us the top 10 customers. We can apply.
Because the context filter, user cannot change anything, right? It's defaulted in the package. But whereas the this filter, the user can interactively change the filter. Correct?
No, actually, here what the context filter is doing, here the context filter is directly querying the data source, right? Here the context filter is not querying the MS Access file. Here the context filter is directly querying the data source. So if you take any values or if you pass any conditions on the context filter, it is going to run the query behind the scene.
Okay.
So even we can add n number of quick filters on the context filters. Whereas this normal filter, it will apply depending on the context filter output data. So every time if you select any value, it is going to update that temporary table, and the normal filter it is going to query that temporary table. Okay, so any other questions?
No Prajwal. Carry on, please.
Alright, yeah. So now let me discuss one more task. So I would like to get top 10 countries in quarter Q4. Okay, in the user selected department, and for the user selected year, So here I would like to show the top 10 countries in the quarter Q4 in the user selected department and for the user selected year. So here we have to pass this department and the year to the user. Okay. So just create a new sheet. Just drag the quarter. Into filters, click on Q4. So in the quarter Q4 and also in the department, it means the top 10 countries or the top n countries, that depending on the quarter. So I'm making it as the context and I'm taking the department. Equal to, okay, I'm selecting, let's say for example, I'm selecting technology. I'm making it as the context. And I'm showing the department with filter because the user will pass his selection. I'm adding it to filter for the department. And also in the user selected year, drag or rotate and drop it into filters. Click on years and click on next. So for now I'm selecting 1 year 2030. Let me click on apply and click on OK. And I'm selecting the year by adding it to context. So here we want to get the top 10 countries. So how to get the top 10 countries? Just drag the country and drop it into filters. Go to top, click on by field top 10, and this time I'm going to measure as my profit. So for this here also we have to add the selection. Now just click on country. So now here let me convert this to online. That is taking the WMS. Here we got the top 10 items based on the profits. Okay. So here if I pass, let's say instead of taking the year, if I take 2012, it is going to give us the 2012 data. Okay, in the 2012 department is technology, and in the Q4 it is giving us the top 10 items. So even we can make the context filter dynamic. Okay, so it's all about the context filters. Okay, it's all about the context filters. Next, then so it's clear, right? The context filter is clear, right? So just I would like to confirm. If you have any questions, please post your questions, please. Okay, alright, I'm sure it's clear for you. So now I'm jumping into my next type of filtering, the data source filtering. So we have seen the different types of filters at the worksheet level. Now let me discuss about the data source level filters. So how to perform the filtering at the data source level. So we have two more ways of adding the filters at the sheet level. They are cascading filters. Cascading filters is a separate scenario, and the other is the parameter filters. So I will discuss this parameter filters after the data source level filters. Okay. So first let me discuss about the data source level filters. So we go to Tableau. So how to, I'm creating a new workbook. So how to get a new workbook means just simply click on file and click on new. Okay. It is going to create a new workbook. So I'm connecting to the Superstore from my home page. So the Superstore is having, I think, close to some 16,000 records. So how to know the number of records means just go to the measures. From the measures, just drag the number of records and drop it into rows. So total we're having 16,798 records. It means if Tableau is retrieving the complete data from the data source. Let's say I would like to get only the Asian continent data. So how to get only the Asian continent data? So how to get only the Asian continent data means just simply right click on the data source. If you right click on the data source, we are having an option called as edit data source filters. So click on the edit data source filters. If you click on the edit data source filters, in this filters window here we can able to add the filter. So to add the filter, just click on add. If you click on add, here we can able to see the different fields. So I would like to get only the Asian continent, so just click on the continent, hit OK. So I'm selecting only the Asia. Just hit OK, hit OK. Now click on view data. If you click on view data, here we can able to see the 4023 records. Okay, it means the Asian continent contains only the 4023 records. Now here I'm taking one sheet, I'm dragging continent, and I'm taking the continent into my rows. I'm creating one more sheet, and again I'm taking continent and I'm taking the continent field into my rows. In both the sheets here, what Tableau is showing us? In both the sheets here, Tableau is showing us the Asian continent. So it means if you apply any filter at the data source level, Tableau going to take what? Tableau going to apply the same data to all the sheets. Tableau going to apply the same data to all the sheets. So in Tableau, it is possible to apply at the worksheet level also in filter sharing options. So here I'm creating a new sheet. I'm dragging the order date. I'm dragging in the order date and I'm dropping into rows. So I'm adding a quick filter on this. So we can able to share this filter by right clicking on it, going to apply to worksheets. We can use like all using the data source. So here I'm selecting only 2012. So now if I create a new sheet and if I drag the order date, if I drag the order date here, what Tableau going to show here? Only 2012. So at the worksheet level also, using the filter sharing options, we can share the filter. Across the multiple worksheets. Okay, across the multiple worksheets, we can share the filter. So then what is the difference between the data source filter and the sharing the filter at the worksheet level? So the difference is, if you take one data source, let me take here, I'm taking the data source. Here I am taking the data source. Okay, it is my data source. Okay, and let's say I'm having two workbooks in Tableau. The two workbooks are, let's say for example, I'm taking the .twbx and .twbx1. Here two workbooks I am taking .twbx1. So this workbook is having filter sharing. It means filter sharing means filtering at the worksheet level. Here it is having the worksheet level filter. It is having the worksheet level filter. So now what will happen at the worksheet level filter means the worksheet level filter, it is going to apply at the worksheet level. It means Tableau is going to get the complete data from the data source into Tableau. Let's say in my data source I am having some 17,000 records. So Tableau is going to get all the 17,000 records into the Tableau. So after getting the complete data, now it is going to apply what? Now it is going to apply the filter. Okay, after getting the complete data, now it is going to apply this filter. Okay, it is going to apply this filter. We have one more filter, that is the data source level. What will happen with the data source level filter means, so it is going to apply the filter at the data source level. First, it is going to apply the filter at the data source level. It is going to take the filter at the data source level. So after applying the filter at the data source level, okay, the workbook will get the filtered data. It means, let's say here I'm taking the Asian continent data. So it is going to apply the Asian filter on the data source. After applying the Asia filter on the data source, it is going to get the filtered data into the Tableau. It is going to get what? The filtered data. Let's say the 4,000 records. Okay, the 4,000 records into the Tableau. So what is the difference between filter at the worksheet level and filter at the data source level means? Okay, if you take the filter at the data source level, first the filter will be applied and then the data will come into Tableau. First the filter will be applied at the data source, then the data will come into Tableau. The filtered data will come into Tableau, and this data is common for all the sheets. This data is common for all the sheets. And if you take the filter sharing at the worksheet level here, as the filter going to apply at the sheet level, so first the complete data, it is going to come into the Tableau. After getting the complete data, on the complete data here Tableau going to apply the filter. Okay, on the complete data here Tableau going to apply the filter. It means the data has to pass over the network from the data source to the Tableau. So it is always advantageous to take the filter at the data source level if you want to perform the analysis of the required data. let's say you have the 10 years data, and if you want to analyze only 1 year data, then just take the filter at the data source level, because at the worksheet level, first Tableau going to get what? The complete data. So this filtering at the data source is a new feature from Tableau 8. So if you go to the sheet, so here we are sharing the filter at the worksheet level. Tableau is getting the complete data. Okay, Tableau to get the complete data, whereas in this case, if you click on the view data, Tableau going to show only the 4020 records, and if you click on the view data here, if you click on the, sorry, not this workbook, the other workbook. If you go to the other workbook, if you click on the view data, here we can able to see the 10,000 records. Here how many records? 16,798. So just click on 16,798. So it is showing that the complete 16,798 records. Okay. So it is getting the complete data and then applying the filter at the worksheet level. Whereas at the data source level, first applying the filter and then getting the data. Okay, it's about the data source filter. So let's take one more thing on the data source filters. Let's say I would like to get 2013 data also along with the Asian font. So how to get the 2013 data? Right click on the data source. Here we are having an option called as edit data source filters. Click on edit data source filters. Here if you want to add one more filter, just click on add and select the order date. Click on OK. So click on yes. Click on next. Click on 2013 and just hit OK. Just hit OK. Now it is going to give us what? 2013 Asian continent data for all the worksheets. Okay, for all the worksheets. So it's about the data source filters. So we left with one more thing, the parameter filters. So now I don't have the time. So tomorrow we'll discuss, and tomorrow we'll start the next scenario. Okay, so I'm ending for today. If you have any questions, please post your questions.